Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 58. Is 19 points out of 20 good enough, do you think? My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined, as always, by Lindsey Brown of Lotus Broadcasting and Chris Chapman of Fox Sports Las Vegas. Episode 58, along with all episodes, are brought to you by the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, your place for everything, and I mean everything Las Vegas. Food recommendations, show recommendations, gambling recommendations, strip club. I don't know if they necessarily do that, but let's not talk about that. And my good friend, Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, www.agelessforever.net, the go-to place for men's and women's health, not traditional medicine, the new kind of medicine where they focus on each patient individually. And it is absolutely the stone cold nuts for you poker players if you want to get healthy. So here we are, kids. Coach Cassidy likes to keep his season divided up into 10-game blocks. The Golden Knights have just completed their first 10-game block of the year. They are 9-0-1, 19 points out of a possible 20. And when asked about his assessment of the first two games, the reporter who asked him said, points aside. And Bruce's first part of his response was, I'm not going to put the points aside because the bottom line is this is a results business. So 10 games in, 19 out of 20 points. I don't think there's a complaint on the results side, but what are your takeaways sort of as a whole from the first 10 games of the season, Lindsey?
Well, I think it's something that we've kind of discussed over the course of the new season, and I'm sure we'll get into more today, of just how many different ways they can win and the efficiency that they're doing it up and down the lineup. They're getting scoring from every single faction of their team. Earlier on, we were seeing a lot of scoring from defensemen, which was a departure from last season. Most of it was in forwards, and then some of it, we got a little bit healthier, and then our scoring diversified more down into the lower lineup now that we've seen Jack Eichel not score as many goals. He's taking a lot of shots. There's a lot of offense being generated, but it's coming from different parts of the lineup. Even in the game in Montreal where Paul Cotter scores on the power play, right? From the spot that you usually set up Jack Eichel on, at least on the opposite side of the rink. And so with that confidence, I think burns that feeling that you're never really out of any game. And that's been prevalent through this roster, basically through the end of last season, all the way through the playoffs, right? They either got up to a good enough lead or they kept it within striking distance. And so for me, that's been the most impressive thing. And I think specifically the player that I think the last two seasons that has at least helped them weather the storm and the forward group is William Karlsson, who I had some notes last night as I was rewatching the Canadiens game because I wasn't able to go. So far, he has 3 goals and 8 assists through the first 7 games versus in 2022 through the first 8. He had 3 goals and 2 assists, and it was a little bit tougher of a start last season, at least when it came to scoring, even though the results were there. And so what matters are the results. What matters is that you're banking points for hopefully maybe another spring run where you have a little bit of breathing room should a couple of the other teams in the Pacific take off. But if I'm Edmonton, I'm losing my shit right now watching what the Golden Knights are accomplishing and how bad I'm struggling because I'm seeing this unbelievable hurdle start to grow and grow and grow. And there's a lot of season left to get over it, but there's a lot of season left before they can figure it out. And so they should be very proud of their effort. It's by as close of a carryover from a championship into a regular season as I've ever seen. And we'll see how they're able to sustain it because at some point the camel's going to break down and then we'll see what this team's character is like this
Lindsey,
season.
You know, the thing is, you mentioned the depth scoring, right? You go into the Kings game on last Saturday, and the only player going into that game, aside from the goalies who hadn't registered a point on the season, was William Carrier. Well, he says, fuck you. It's my time to score. And what does he do? He goes out and he scores goals in back-to-back games. So I think Mark Stone was pretty critical of the which is amazing to me, right? You're 9-0-1, and here's your captain, and he's not particularly calling guys out or saying, you know, this guy needs to do this or that guy needs to do that. But he's not happy with the performance the last few nights. But the reality is, this team's still winning these games, and I think it probably has a lot to do with the fact that they're just a lot more talented than the Montreal Canadiens. We saw them against Philadelphia, right? They're just more talented than those teams. But the reality is, they probably didn't deserve 2 points in either of those games, but they found ways to get them. I think it's interesting, though, the 10-game increment thing, because as you mentioned, Lindsey, there will be a point where you do hit a little bit of a rut. But you look at the upcoming schedule. I think we'll probably post this on Thursday. So Winnipeg will be in town. You didn't see Connor Hellebuck the last time you played them, so you very likely will see him. Yeah,
Gonna
so you're very
see
likely
him
to see him
tomorrow.
Thursday night. Then you've got Colorado, who I think is one of those teams that kind of, and it's ridiculous to think that the team that won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago could slide under the radar as far as a favorite going into this season to win the Stanley Cup. But they were one of my picks. They were my dark horse pick, which is ridiculous, right? They're not really a dark horse either, but they were my team to play Vegas in the Western Conference Final. So it's a big matchup on Saturday night at the Fortress. And then you start to get in the point where you're going to be taking road trips, and you have a road trip coming up in about 2 weeks where you go to Pittsburgh, you go to Philadelphia, you go to Montreal. So there's a couple games coming up where you're going to be on the East Coast. You got that long roadie coming up. So this team is about to go through some, I don't want to say adversity, but there will be some bumps in the road coming up in the next few weeks heading into Thanksgiving. But I just want to mention something else you said. Bruce said, I'm not going to brush aside the 9 out of 10 or 19 points. He made a comment last year. You don't give those points back, right? You bank those points. And how valuable were those points with the way Edmonton played down the stretch last year? The thing is, Golden Knights somehow, some way, have overcome this Stanley Cup hangover myth. And they've done things that nobody has ever seen. Like, even going back, if you're 100 years old and you've been watching this game for 90 years, you've never seen a team do what the Golden Knights have done to start the season, defending the Stanley Cup. I mean, the NHL record for wins to start a season is 10. Golden Knights have points in all 10 games. It's ridiculous. But can they improve? Yes, I think so, which is scary.
Well, you talk about not winning with your A game. Your A game. I mean, I think you could easily say that the Flyers game, the Blackhawks game, the Canadiens game, they got points in those games, probably not with even their B game. I mean, there were stretches in those specific games where they were just awful. I mean, Montreal, stole their lunch from them for most of that game. And I don't know what the
outshot 8-0 in the first 12 minutes of the second period, and I think they had like one shot down the stretch of the third.
Yeah, it was. I mean, but they win, and I think, Chap, you're exactly right. They're winning because they're better. They're just more talented up and down the line. And I mean, if you think about it, the thing that they talk about in the NHL is you can't make the playoffs by Thanksgiving, but you can certainly put yourself out. And Thanksgiving is basically a month away, and Edmonton is in big trouble. And Calgary, who we really didn't kind of know what they were going to be, that they had thrown out Daryl Sutter and right, they're in deep, deep, deep trouble. And I don't want to say that our least favorite coach, asshole face from Edmonton, what's his name, Woodcroft.
He's not the worst.
Oh no, he was a total dick last year, Lindsey. You weren't around. You didn't stick around for it. He was a total dick in the press room. But anyway, would you say? Do you think he's on the hot seat? Maybe.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
10 games in, you think he's on the hot seat?
In Edmonton, especially, he is. Because, if you ask even most hockey fans, you ask who's that coach, the Edmonton Oilers, you have to search for the name, right? Because he was just kind of an unknown guy that bubbled up after. I don't even remember who's their most recent coach before that, because there's just been so much turnover. And the thing is whoever goes up there to coach, is basically on a countdown to getting fired anyways, because the roster construction is so batshit crazy. They have money committed to bad parts of their roster. Darnell Nurse is making too much money. Jack Campbell's making too much money to not stop pucks. And then you got the contracts of Kane, who they're diminishing ice time. And then Connor, who I think they probably rushed back from injury because it was getting so bad for the Heritage Classic. And they're just so top heavy. And that's the way that they play. That's the way they score on power plays. That's the way they run their offense. That's why they haven't been able to figure it out in the playoffs and what it takes to win yet, because they don't have at every layer, whether it's the individual player, the line combinations, the roster construction is not there's not enough depth. And it's caught up to them to start this season so far, where it just takes a few games of a bad string and all of a sudden the sky is falling. So I think his job is very, very
Dave Tippett, by the way, was the previous coach to Jay Woodcroft.
Tippett was?
Previous to that, it was Todd McClellan, who is, I would say, having some pretty good success in Los Angeles. But yeah, I think Woodcroft's seat is probably a little hot. I mean, look, you come into this season disappointed with the way last season ended, and you haven't exactly had a banner start to the season. Look, the Pacific Division right now, outside of the Golden Knights, stinks. The Vancouver Canucks currently are the second place team in the.
I'm going to push back. The Kings don't. The Kings don't stink.
All right, but they're not playing well. They're not playing well enough to start.
4-0 on the road, 16 for 16 on the PK on the road. They blasted the Maple Leafs last night in Toronto.
What's their record? Okay, they're not.
I don't know.
Hold on, I got it right here. LA is 5-2
all right,
and
so
2.
That's pretty good. I take that back. But look, no.
I mean, they're not the Ducks.
That's the thing. The Ducks stink. The Sharks. I don't even think they have a fucking win.
Sorry.
Right? San Jose still doesn't have a win.
No, so they don't have a win yet.
You've got dead weight at the bottom of the conference. And then you add in Edmonton and Calgary not playing well. I mean, Seattle, they're kind of middling, right? They're about what we expected, and I think they'll improve. But, like, this is an opportunity. Look, the fact that the Golden Knights didn't lose a game a regulation game in the month of October is ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. And the fact that you have already built this big lead, I mean, we were figuring out the other night, the Golden Knights could play 500 hockey, literally 36 and 36 the rest of the way. You got 72 games left. And they'll end the season with 91 points. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, just out of the playoffs. Yeah, that's the wildest stat. There's 72 games left. They're at 110, 112,
right around where they were
something
last
like
year.
that. So this just in, the owner of the Edmonton Oilers has called Mark Davis for advice on how to fire a coach and a general manager mid-season.
Yeah.
Oh, free shot. Oh, he took one right at the ankle.
McDaniels. You lose to the Lions.
But here's sort of the question. The Raiders are what, 3-5? Yep. So they're basically halfway through their season, and they shipped those two. Edmonton is literally 8% into the 10% into the season.
But the pressure's so high. The pressure's so high. The pressure.
It's not high.
No, it is. It is, because this is the year that they're expected to take a step and get at least one more round of the playoffs. Like we're at cup or bust, right? But like realistically, what does that entail other than hopefully getting hot in the playoffs and finding a different gear there? How do you put yourself in better position? By playing a better regular season and winning the division and giving yourself an easier road. And within 4 weeks, they've already basically conceded it. And that's where it's not just the result. It's the fact that they are having this result coming off of a summer of motivation where they were supposed to go to the final. They lose to the Knights. Now Connor and Leon have something to chew on all summer long. They've been chewing, and then it starts like this. Like time is of the essence here. Time is of the essence. And so I think the pressure is crazy there. I think that there's a high likelihood that Woodcroft is out by, I think Christmas is even generous. Like if it continues at this pace,
look,
I think it could be
5 points after 9 games. 5. Even the Ducks,
Yeah.
the Ducks have 10. The Ducks are doubling up Vancouver.
Right.
Vancouver is in next to last. I'm sorry. Yeah, they're third from the bottom behind the winless Sharks and the other dumpster fire in Alberta, the Calgary Flames. They're going to have to get it turned around quick. Look, they're 14 points behind the Golden Knights after 10 games. I don't think any first of all, I don't think any NHL fan would have predicted that. Like, they're 7 wins behind after 10 games.
Which team is more likely to turn it around, though? Do you think it's Calgary or Edmonton? Because I think it's Calgary.
Because I think they've got McDavid.
I don't think so.
But if he's not 100% healthy, then what? Look, I love Draisaitl and McDavid as that two-headed monster, but I think with that offense and the way that power play can get going, they've got the potential to win a bunch of games just based purely on their power play. But they need to turn it around quick, because you're starting to get to a point where if you fall too far back, I mean, and I'm not talking about the Golden Knights. I'm talking about the teams that are ahead of you, like the Kings, the Kraken, even the Canucks, and yeah, why not the Ducks? It gets really, really difficult to, what's that thing about Thanksgiving and the playoffs? Like, if you're in the playoff race at Thanksgiving, or if you're in a playoff spot, the percentage is so much more increased of you making the playoffs than not. They're about 3 weeks away from Depth Star 6. I mean, they're in big, big trouble, especially, and I haven't looked at their schedule, but I wonder how healthy McDavid is, because obviously I'm with Lindsay. I think they kind of look. He said he was good to go, and that's the player he is. But you have to wonder.
But he didn't. He didn't have a Connor
you really
McDavid
have to
game
wonder
in that outdoor game.
5 straight games against Western Conference opponents coming up on their schedule: Dallas, Nashville, at Vancouver, at San Jose, at Seattle, and then all of a sudden,
look, and outside of San Jose, there's no.
That's a lot of games.
They could easily. Yeah, that's got 2 and 3 written all over.
That what takes you right to about Thanksgiving.
Between now and Thanksgiving, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh wow! So they've got 11 games.
So they're going to be playing almost every other night. You're going to go on a little bit of a Western Canada swing / just Western Conference. Then they have New York and Seattle at home, the Islanders. And then they go to the East Coast at Tampa, at Florida, at Carolina, Washington.
That is one of the more difficult road trips in the NHL. So
yeah, for sure.
You're a long way from home, and if things pardon the pun, if they've gone south at that point, that could be the potential.
That he gets fired there. Yeah,
like I could totally see them going down to Tampa and getting waxed. And maybe that being, if they haven't improved, maybe that being the moment where management says, you know what, we got to figure out a way, and we need to make a change.
They see Vegas for the first time in Edmonton, so just a few days later.
But still,
is that Thanksgiving Day?
The 28th? No, isn't Thanksgiving like usually the 24th, 25th, 26th-ish, right in there?
It's late. I think it's the
Thanksgiving.
Wow.
No,
all right, we shouldn't. Enough talking about them. What is it? 16 Golden Knights have scored a goal. 22 have points. I think Nabber might be the only one without a goal.
5 assists, by the way, which still puts him on pace for 45 points. Like,
and plus 9
Brady
or 10, I think. I mean, a big healthy goals, plus number.
The offensive production for him, he's one of those guys who every time I talk to him, I'm more impressed talking to him, because I feel like he always seems to have little things that he tells me that he worked on over the summer. And I wonder if maybe his passing is maybe something he worked on. He told me coming up that he was an offensive player, but he also told me he realized real quick that he wasn't going to make it in the NHL as a guy who had points. his bread and butter was a stay-at-home defenseman. But 5 points from him, that's a bonus. That's a huge bonus for him. He only had like 16 or 17 points last year.
I hesitate to talk about this, but I feel like we probably should. I understand why everybody says that Shea Theodore is an all-star level, potentially worthy of Norris consideration. But I got to tell you, he's struggling on the defensive side of the puck.
So you got to play defense to win the Norris too, Eddie.
Not
Ask Eric Carlson.
Guys say contrary to recent results, but like that drives me nuts.
The guy who won it last year certainly would like to have a word with you about playing defense. Granted, he also had
the guy that won it last year is still waiting for his boarding pass to get into the defensive zone. But I mean, listen, we watch the games and we sit together and we just watch Shea struggle defensively. And then he goes out and scores a huge goal with 13 seconds left, and everything is, you think it's sort of like forgiven, but the reality is he has over the last, well, certainly since this year and for big stretches last year, he struggles defensively, especially in zone. And I mean, I don't know that it's worrisome, but it certainly drives us batshit crazy in the press box watching him give primary assists on some of the other team's goals. I mean, are you concerned overall? I mean, is this going to linger? Can he get better? Or is this just the Shea Theodore who's going to be the offensive dynamo and we're going to just go, we have to accept that he might not be as good defensively as he is offensively?
Well, I think that's a concession that a lot of teams are willing to make right now, right? With defensemen that are that offensively skilled. And considering what this core is, they're built to withstand that type of fluidity probably better than most teams. I mean, I don't know if Brayden McNabb is necessarily that guy, but he stays home so often and he's rarely out of position that they can say, Shea, go wheel and deal, go take a creative liberty. I haven't been watching the games as closely as you guys have as I'm in football season. That'll change as the season goes on. But my question to you guys is, in terms of these turnovers, are they on breakout passes or are they because the forwards are too high in the zone and he's trying to make something happen without having them come back to the play? Is it seem like he's trying to make passes that he thinks he can make versus what the system calls for or what the easy hockey play is? Like, is he taking liberties or is he just simply making the right decision at the wrong time?
I don't think it's any of those things. I don't know. He's making these turnovers not really under duress. I mean, it's one thing if Dustin Byfuglien is bearing down on you and the puck's been dumped in behind you, and you know you're about to end up in the seventh row. But he's just, it's hard. It's hard to describe because I don't want to attack the guy because it's not the guy.
Well, attack the pattern. Like, where is it happening? Is it behind the net? Is it on initial breakout moments where there is a little bit of pressure?
Breakout.
It's all over the ice.
Chicago that resulted in a goal. I notice a lot of times he fumbles the puck a bit around the blue line in the offensive zone.
Yep, that's true.
And our colleague Ken Bulkey says it's like sometimes. It's one of those things where I think there's the negative in that, yeah, his play with the puck sometimes is a little goofy, but man, like what you get from him production-wise on the offensive end and on the scoreboard and on the stat sheet, it's so hard to overlook that. Like, I look at it this way. If Shea Theodore wasn't as dynamic offensively as he is, he probably wouldn't be in the NHL because he's certainly not going to win any awards for being defensive defenseman. But I think there's a reason why you play him with Brayden McNabb. McNabb is the most responsible defensive player He's probably your best defensive defenseman. He's unbelievably intelligent. His IQ of the game is off the charts, and he's so good at what he does without any fanfare, without any glory, that it allows you to have maybe that guy who potentially is going to make a mistake, but could also do something that's absolutely amazing. And Shea Theodore has scored some huge, huge goals for this team over the last 6 years. No All-Star game.
Yeah, go all the way back to
he
year
hasn't
one.
made an All-Star game, but the way he's playing, at least on the stat sheet, fans are going to look at that and say, "Hey, you know what? This guy's having a really big year. This may be the year if Shea Theodore continues his offensive production. To me, this could be the year that Shea Theodore represents the Golden Knights at the All-Star game." And people who watch him every night may be like, "Well, he's not a great defenseman." Yeah, but he's a great offensive defenseman, and that's what fans want. They want points. They want highlight reel goals. And Shea Theodore provides that. And he does it in a lot of areas. So, yeah, it's frustrating at times, especially, like I said, that turnover against Chicago was like, if I'm Bruce Cassidy, I'm going into the locker room with a little less hair on my head after that play. But I also know that when push comes to shove, Shea Theodore is going to make a play that gets me back into the game, which is exactly what he did. So, yeah, there's the bad, but I think the good way, way overcompensates for the bad.
I mean, I don't want to make this sound like I think he's lackadaisical or anything like that about his character as a hockey player. Maybe it's just his decision making. He just. I mean, you can't say that he doesn't see the game. You can't say, that's amateur criticism. But maybe it's just that the mistakes that he makes when he makes them are gargantuan, right? He doesn't make little mistakes like a bad breakout pass up the wall or something like that. When he scores a goal, it's usually an ESPN worthy highlight. And when he assists on another team's goal, it's also almost an ESPN highlight because they're massive gaffes. And maybe I'm hypercritical, but it's just frustrating to see such a talented guy make those kinds of mistakes.
What it reminds me of, and Lindsey, of course, you being around the NFL a bit, this will probably make a bit of sense, but a lot of times his mistakes, what they remind me of is when the quarterback drops back and he hits a receiver who's got like 50 yards of open field ahead of him, and he's looking ahead at those 50 yards of open field and drops the ball. Like I feel like that's a little bit of what you get with Shea Theodore, because that he's got the potential to go on a 75-yard touchdown run. But he also has the potential to drop the pass with 75 yards of green ahead of him. And like I said, I think sometimes you just you accept that you're going to get that from time to time because the upside is so much more valuable.
It's almost like he's chasing the potential rather than what is present sometimes, based off of what you guys are seeing. And I'll watch this a little bit more closely and where these situations he finds them in, because there's only so long that you're on the ice for each shift, right? And so there's certain areas of the ice where players will turn it up a little bit more. They'll get a little pep in their step, or they'll save their thinking skills, or at least their main hockey locked in skills. And the way that I see sometimes Shea is that he's always looking for the potential for that game breaking play, like a stretch pass through the neutral zone that he's really prone and always kind of looking for. When you're always looking for that, you don't always see that underneath. And similar to what you're saying, Chris, is like, I'm thinking about the 50 yards ahead of me versus the catch. And so you get broken up, or the gap that you thought you had wasn't as big as you thought. So all of a sudden there's pressure, and then the player's right here. So I turn it over and there's open ice and all of that. So I think based on what you're telling me, it looks like he's looking a little bit too far ahead sometimes, or for that potential big time play rather than always staying in the present. But those are the costs and the checks and balances, as you guys just illustrated, of a player of his caliber and of his skill set. And so at least they've paired him with a good person to help balance that out. and have a good defensive core and responsible forwards that are able to help in pinches most of the time.
Let's see. What else is on the list today? Bruce mentioned something in his last press conference. I don't think he said he was concerned, but he was, we need more from our top lines as far as production goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of interesting because Jack Eichel's tracking at better than a point a game. I mean, do we have any concern about, I mean, you can't say that there's a chemistry issue with Eichel, Marchessault, and Barbashev. We asked Mark Stone about playing with Paul Cotter, and he said, I played with him before. You know, he's hungry to go get the puck, and he provides the physical, and, he's a finisher. So I wonder, I don't know that I agree with it, but it seems like the whole team has just sort of lowered their intensity a little bit, and they're not going out and smashing people that they should be smashing, and teams are allowed to hang around a lot longer than we suspect that they probably should if the Golden Knights were on their game. So do we have any concerns whatsoever about production or the top line?
Well,
top two
I don't
lines,
know
I guess.
if he means as a unit or if he means specific players, because I would certainly say that
Right.
when you look at the scoring for the Golden Knights, yeah, it's come from a lot of different areas. But like you mentioned, Jack Eichel is right up there, second in points on the team, only behind William Karlsson. Mark Stone is up there. You've gotten some production from some of the other guys. I almost wonder, and I don't necessarily think he meant like Jack Eichel. I think it was more along the lines of, hey, we've got to get Marchessault and Barbashev going because you've only got 5 points from Jonathan Marchessault. You look at the goals that he scored, and he's got 3 goals and only 2 assists. And then you've got Ivan Barbashev, who we know, if you listen to this podcast at all, I love my Ivan Barbashev, but he's only got 2 goals and he's got no assists. So yeah, you probably want a bit more from that top line other than Jack Eichel. I mean, look, Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone have certainly not lacked in the production area. And look, I mean, they Paul Cotter, who's playing with them, is having a really good start to his season as well. So it was odd to me that he included the top 2 lines when I think, at least for me, I want more production, and this team is going to need more production out of Jonathan Marchessault and Ivan Barbashev because look, that's your top line. And
Okay, but hold on, hang on. But the edict to Jack Eichel was to shoot more going into this season. So if you ask Jack Eichel to shoot more, you're asking him to set up Marchessault and Barbashev less just by proxy. You can't pump off 38, 40 shots Eddie, in the first 10 games.
The problem with that is he's only got 3 goals. So you want him to shoot more, but
who does?
You also want to.
Well, yeah, but his percentage is low. Yeah. His percentage is low.
So there's
right?
there's a give and take to him shooting more, but you also need him to. I don't necessarily know if you want him. Look, the guy's got 10 points, so there's certainly no complaints about that. But you want him to shoot more, but you also want him to score more goals, and he's only got 3 goals through 10 games.
So is it out of balance? Has he overcompensated to the shooting side versus last year where it was all dish?
I don't know, and he's got. Look, here's the thing: he's got 3 goals on the season, and 2 of them have come on the power play. So, I mean, you could look at it, and that top line isn't even scoring. They've got 3 goals, or I'm sorry, they've got 5 goals between them. So 6 goals as a unit.
You're also asking Jack to do different responsibilities than you were asking him last year. And so I think there needs to be room to grow. Exactly. And that's where I'm talking about these little bursts of speed or bursts of energy when you're thinking with the puck on your stick creatively, because you could take a million shots, but if they're all from the outside, I mean, what good are they really? And that's where I want to see Jack driving more. I think the chances are there. I think that they haven't been able to hit on a lot of them and execute. Like there's a play that I've written down. There's a big shift from 49, 81, and 9 with a big chance from Barbashev to Marshy on the right flank, back door that squirts through the goaltender's knees. And then they hold it and work it back up to the top, which Barbashev collected and then shot low through traffic, gets a rebound and a look in front. Like those, if you see that play 10 times, you're probably going to get a goal in 4 of them at least, right? And with that type of talent, you would hope that it's closer to 6. I think that, especially in that game against Montreal, it seemed that Jack was a lot more keen to skating up in the top of the offensive zone and creating offense through there rather than
Yep.
taking it down the boards, taking it down to the lower parts of the ice where that low to high is really effective, but it can't just be flyby. Like there were points where Montreal was holding the Golden Knights hostage below their own goal line for long durations during shifts. Like that's what it takes, not just the flyby and then work it to the top. You have to get their defensemen looking below, expecting you below, facing, being gravitationally pulled to below. So when you work it up high, they have to make about 3 different movements to be able to put themselves back in position versus just 2 or 1 because they don't legitimize it as a threat. And so that's why like zone entries are so important, not just in terms of getting the team into the zone, but they're a huge indicator on how the players are confident in any given night and how to conduct their business. And the more that the Golden Knights conduct their business in the high offensive zone, I think it lends itself to more empty offense, especially from the likes of Jack Eichel, because you can look busy but not get a lot of stuff.
Yeah, look, I'm not concerned. Like I don't think it's a concern because I feel like that line will come around and they'll get theirs. Mm-hmm. But early on, it's like if you're looking for something to be critical of, and obviously Bruce was in this situation, yeah, you probably want more than 2 goals and 0 assists out of Ivan Barbashev. You probably want more than 3 goals and 2 assists from Jonathan Marchessault. So it's not.
Okay, but that line has 17 points in 10 games.
It's not a complaint, but because, like I said, I think they will eventually find their game, and when they do, it's only going to be better for this team. Look, there's not a lot of holes. There's not a lot of weaknesses. This team is primed to repeat. The way they're playing indicates that they're dialed in. They're fully in. It's not a concern. It'll come around. But right now, if you're looking for something to nitpick, I guess that's it. And that's what we're doing, right? We're nitpicking. We're trying to find, we're trying to find the complaint because
efficiency. That's all.
Eichel's been really fucking good. Like he's been phenomenal. I mean, 10 points. He's getting the job done on the PK. You watch him on the back check. He gets back. Like he is everything you expect Jack Eichel to be. So certainly 0 complaints about that. But if you're going to nitpick, yeah, I mean, I guess that's what you nitpick.
So we're working on a new segment. It's going to be a weekly segment for Lindsey. It's going to be news from the net because Lindsey was a goaltender, and I just sprung that on her, so we won't really sort of formalize that until the next episode. But I have groundbreaking Vegas Golden Knights news.
What's that?
This has not been reported anywhere. Clickbaits haven't found it yet, but I have it from an undeniably accurate, spot-on source. Robin Lehner is in Summerlin.
Really?
There has been a panda sighting by somebody that I know personally who is absolutely not in the media and beyond reproach as far as character goes, who called me on the phone and said, "You're not going to believe what I just saw." And I said, "Sure, I'll play along. A 3-armed bunkie and a Halloween." And he goes, "How about a panda sighting in Summerlin?" So, oh boy,
that's certainly newsworthy. But it could be for any reason, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean that he is getting ready to play. Maybe he's selling his house. I don't know, but I mean, certainly you would hope right? And I think there's certainly a divided camp. As Lindsey likes to say, Camper Joes and Camper Jills may be divided on this one, but if he's in the mix and he can play, first of all, from a salary cap perspective, you have to do some serious gymnastics.
It's a disaster.
But I don't think it's any secret between myself and Eddie, and I don't know how you feel, Lindsey, but some other people that I talk to who really know the game well. If Robin Lehner is in net for the Golden Knights, and that's a big if, right? Obviously, him being in town doesn't necessarily mean he's ready to play or he's going to play. But hypothetically, if Robin Lehner somehow is able to get in net and play for the Golden Knights, I think he gives you your best chance to repeat. I think he, system-wise, is the best goalie for this system. Of the three.
Go ahead, goalie.
Okay, that might be true, but when was the last time he played?
There's
like, what's the state of himself physically? Like, how has he managed his frame? How has he managed his weight? Because all that matters when it comes to his rehab and his longevity to be able to withstand the rigors of being an NHL goaltender, which are hard enough, and they're super hard for a guy of his size and stature.
Let me rephrase that. A fully healthy Robin Lehner is the best goalie for this system.
I mean, maybe, I guess, if you want to start pulling straws that way, but like, you don't just take that amount of time off and then easily slide back in. Like, I take a week off from practice back in my glory days, and I had to rewire my eyeballs because I had to relearn how to track the puck because you have to stay in it. And I don't know. I have a hard time believing if I don't know how much he's been on the ice. I don't know how many pucks he's seen. If he's been able to do all of that, like it's a complete hypothetical. So I
admit it would have been a much juicier tip if somebody would have seen him at City National on the ice.
Yeah.
You know, I totally get that. But just the fact, just when you think about it, when Kelly McCrimmon has basically said nothing about him for the last year and a half, right? For him to suddenly listen, it was a shameless, shitty clickbait idea, but I thought it was newsworthy because honestly, nobody's seen him or heard from him or knows anything about him since, you know, a year and a half ago. So for ongoing episodes, starting with 59, Lindsey's going to do a segment called News from the Nets. And it might not be all about Vegas Golden Knights goaltenders, but Vegas Golden Knights goaltending certainly gives us a lot to talk about every episode. And I'm out of things to talk about for this episode. So we're going to end episode 58. We're going to tell you that the Golden Knights have the Winnipeg Jets on Thursday night. And then the first meeting of the year with what we expect will be the Western Conference final matchup. Finally, we were expecting it 2 years ago and then expecting it last year. But the incredibly hated Colorado Avalanche come to town on Saturday night. We will be back with you next week. And knock on wood and cross your fingers, we're going to have a very special guest join us who you, I am sure, will find incredibly entertaining because he is a walking soundbite. So that's going to wrap up episode 58. We're going to call it, Is 19 out of 20 Good Enough? We want to thank our sponsors, the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, and agelessforever.net, my good friend, Dr. John Pierce. This is the time where I beg for subscribers. The prize pack has not been claimed yet. Chapman has posters. I have gold statues. Lindsey has nothing to contribute to the prize pool. But we are at 196 subscribers. That means that 4 of you, number 4, Bobby Orr, we need 4 more people to get to the magical 200 number. And I don't know what YouTube gives us. Maybe they give us a prize for getting that. But please, like it, share it, subscribe it. We will be back with you again next week. Thank you very much for watching. Kids, Lindsey, Chris, have fun with your sports lives. Lindsey, enjoy your Raider coverage. There seems to be a lot to talk about these days.
Certainly is.
All right, folks, we're out of here. Take care.